Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about why Israel Adesanya does not deserve yet another title shot, plus the fan reaction online to the news that Israel Adesanya got to headline UFC 300, or at least got offered to headline UFC 300. So, firstly, let's start off with where all this noise came from. It came from Israel Adesanya doing a podcast with Theo Von, talking about how he was offered UFC 300, except it was Dricus du Plessis' team who didn't want to take that fight. And the entire industry response seems to be, number one, the fans, that Dricus du Plessis doesn't want the fight or is somehow running from Israel Adesanya, which is a little bit ridiculous considering where we are in the year and who Dricus du Plessis just fought, but also the industry response to that, okay? So firstly, I think the large industry response to that seems to be like, Dricus du Plessis does not have to fight Israel Adesanya this quickly, okay? There have been two champions that have fought this year. It's Ilia Topuria and Dricus du Plessis. I don't know why we all have to march to the drum of Israel Adesanya's tune. The MMA guru covered that really, really well and showed how the UFC likes to do these quick turnarounds for people who they prefer to be champions. But what he seemed to miss the mark on here, and what a lot of people seem to be missing the mark on here, is that Israel Adesanya does not deserve yet another title shot, which is something that we're going to be covering in this video, okay? There have been some people that realize that it's a bit odd that Izzy is getting yet another title shot and they can't figure out exactly why. I'm going to be explaining that too. But it's just something that not a lot of people are covering. Like, there's MMA Joey out there. I've done a video on this one as well. MMA Joey out there, who is Mr. Meritocracy, who will make videos about Bilal Muhammad and Merab Dvalishvili, won't say anything about Israel Adesanya going ahead and getting yet another title shot, okay? He has gone on to say that Sean Strickland's first fight was completely undeserved against Israel Adesanya, that it was a completely fluke of a win against Israel Adesanya, and that it wasn't even dominant, even though it was a 5-round beating for Sean Strickland. I covered that in another video called Israel Adesanya Fans Are the Absolute Worst. But again, it's absolute radio silence from that side of the aisle when it comes to Izzy being offered yet another title shot. So Izzy is getting offered all these title shots because people are being gaslit that he was this dominant champion, that he was this absolutely dominant champion. Israel Adesanya, okay, is 4 wins, 3 losses in his last 7, okay, with one of those wins being against Robert Whittaker. And that fight was as close as anything. Quite frankly, I think that fight was a robbery, all right? Israel Adesanya was not a dominant champion. He was an average champion at best. I will admit that he had a phenomenal performance against Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori. Fine, fair enough. But he ran away from Yoel Romero. He ran away from Jared Cannonier. And apart from that, he's 4-3, like I said. On top of that, one of them is a robbery against Robert Whittaker, the Robert Whittaker rematch, right? Which could easily make him 3 wins, 4 losses, right? Easily make him 4 losses. He gets touted as this amazing striker, but Jan Blachowicz was able to hold the striking with Israel Adesanya, and Kelvin Gastelum nearly beat him in the striking. Kelvin Gastelum nearly beat Israel Adesanya in striking. All right? So this whole gaslighting from the industry that he deserves yet another title shot because he is just so bloody dominant is crazy to me. He is not that dominant. You are being gaslit about Israel Adesanya. So why are we being gaslit about Israel Adesanya? Why is he being shoved down our throats, pushed into our faces? Why does he keep getting pushed forward, even though he lost his championship, won it back, and then lost it again? No one else in the UFC, except maybe Cyril Gane, gets this kind of privilege, okay? It is because the UFC is working with Disney. Disney and ESPN are the main distributors of the UFC. And when you look at everything that Disney as a company does, there is a very clear message that is going out there, okay? And Israel Adesanya is a very, very good person to stick on top of that message when it comes to selling that message to the MMA community, all right? He wears dresses to press conferences. He wears a collar around his neck. He puts out a documentary of him lying in a bed of pink roses. He paints his nails. He is very, very comfortable with going along with the Disney message, okay? And if you can put someone that is comfortable with going along with the Disney message on top of your pay-per-views, and not only on top of your pay-per-views, but sell him as your sport's biggest star. Israel Adesanya has now gone on to be the face of 2 UFC video games. He was essentially the face of the UFC from like 2001 all the way up until he lost his belt against Sean Strickland. He is a beautiful image for the people that want to sell the Disney message. So obviously that is the direction that the UFC are trying to go, and that is why they keep giving all this leeway towards Israel Adesanya. That is why he feels like an industry plant. That is why he feels like he is being propped up by the corporate MMA media. And Israel Adesanya is a very, very clear line in the sand to tell who is controlled by the corporate MMA media and who is not. It's a very, very simple line to see because he does not gel well with the fans. When you look at his record, he is not a dominant champion. But if people are espousing that that is the fight to happen next, it is a very, very clear virtue signal of what is going on there. And then to make things even more starkly contrasted, which makes it even harder for the UFC to manage this situation going forward, is that you have the complete opposite side of the coin. You have Sean Strickland, who has been just as active as Israel Adesanya, was a former champion, and has just lost his belt now in a split decision, right? Razor close. There is something going on in that division where it could be sorted out so perfectly, okay? You have got Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker, 2 people that were the absolute guy to beat, okay? Robert Whittaker is now coming off a win. Israel Adesanya is coming off a loss. You could easily do Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya to actually fucking earn it and see who is the real #1 contender out of the 2 of them, okay? Pull a Dustin Poirier, who has actually put his hands down his pants and found out that he has a set of nuts and is going to go in there against Benoit Saint Denis, the exact same way as Gaethje did with Fiziev. Make Israel Adesanya put his hand down his fucking pants and see if he actually has a pair on him, and get back in there for Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya 3 and see who is the proper #1 contender. And match up Chimaev with Jared Cannonier, because we know that Jared Cannonier is the version of Bilal Muhammad. They do not want him there, okay? So put Chimaev against Jared Cannonier, put Israel Adesanya against Robert Whittaker. There you go. The division is sorted out, and have Sean Strickland go in there and fight DDP. Sean Strickland versus DDP would be a massive fight. Sean Strickland has a huge fan base globally. DDP's welcoming ceremony back at South Africa was massive. He will bring a whole fan base with him. DDP has a fairly significant fan base as well. Not as big as Sean Strickland, probably not even as big as Israel Adesanya's, but he's got a decent enough fan base. And that fight was so heated and caused so much controversy between the fan base. Maybe it wasn't an absolute barn burner of a fight, but it caused so much back and forth between the fan base that the rematch will do great numbers. But that's the thing. They do not want Sean Strickland, who is the opposite of the message, being a UFC champion. He is very, very hard for them to manage. No matter how much the UFC wants to tout free speech, they still came out and apologized on behalf of Sean Strickland after his infamous press conference in Canada. So if you're the UFC brass, you are looking at the message, Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. And no matter how much you want to virtue signal of what side you're on, at the end of the day, money talks. And we are starting to see which way the wind is blowing in the UFC purely by who does Sean Strickland get matched up with next. And if they're throwing him to Khamzat Chimaev, enough said, versus Israel Adesanya. And who is he getting matched up with next? Not a #1 contender. Not a rematch with Jared Cannonier, not Khamzat Chimaev, not another match with Robert Whittaker. He is just getting given yet another title shot, coming off a dominant 5-round loss. That is what is going on with the Israel Adesanya situation. It is not Dricus du Plessis ducking Israel Adesanya. I think Guru covered that absolutely perfectly, but that is why Israel Adesanya is getting shoved down our throats. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and of course, I will see you all in the next video.